Welcome to my lecture about the principles of graphic design. Before we dive in too far, what is actual graphic design? Wikipedia tells us it's a few things. It's a profession, it's an academic discipline, sort of like learning English is an academic discipline, a field of study, and it's also an applied art form. Its primary purpose is to communicate certain things of a client's needs to a very specific group. Okay, so what does that mean? Is this graphic design or is this? I ask you, we'll circle back around to this after. Which one, how many of you feel that the left could be considered a graphic design or the right? Let's try another example. Is this professional graphic design? Usually get a mixed array, or this. Now let's dive into why one of those may have felt a little better and what principles have gone into the study and the application of this form of art. Professionals distinguish themselves from amateurs by meticulously considering two very specific things, both strategy and application. First, let's talk about strategy. So often I say strategy is about 50% of your total time spent on a project. It's very important. Who's your target audience? Who are they? Understanding them allows you to tailor visuals that are to their specific preferences, interests, needs, and maximize the effectiveness of the design you are trying to communicate with them with. It fosters connection, it builds empathy and relevance in their lives, and it ultimately drives a stronger relationship with the communication piece. Are you communicating to young people in a certain application? Are you communicating, is your target audience retired people looking in newspapers? Or is your target audience the middle of a metroplex? Who are you speaking to? What drives them? What fuels them to connect with your piece and possibly spend, even if it's free, spend money in affiliate marketing, or actually truly spend money and swipe a cart. So who's your target audience and what speaks to them? Next, what's their budget? What's your client's budget? How much money are you working with? And do you understand the tools that you can then help guide your client efficiently through the resources and help them ensure that their design requests are both cost effective and impactful? You have to understand a lot of things that could come about in terms of budget. Are you dealing, one of the most simple is, are you dealing with a small printer in-house, or are you sending it off to a huge four-color printing process with die-cut machines and an assembly line? What is their budget? That might be as simple as where are they printing, but it may be, pretty different. What is their budget? Next up, where are they hoping to apply this piece of communication? What is the final output? Where is it going to go? Is it going to be printed? Is it going to be digital? Is it multimedia? Understanding the variety of options for output in terms of graphic design is really what helps set professionals over amateurs. You can design in Canva a logo, but can you pop that logo out and send it to an embroiderer in the proper file type that resonates with their machine, that takes the thread and needles it through the object that they're putting their brand on? Do you understand the application and technology, which it's always changing too? Are you willing to invest in understanding it for a long time? Do they have a large budget with die cut labels and packaging, or do they have the kind of budget where maybe they could invest $500 in a beautifully designed label and print out that label and put it on a box? Or are they doing full professionally bound and full bleed booklets? Are they doing free on social media? 80% of what people spend money on that they didn't know about on something new, 80% of that they learned about on the free social media platforms. So, do you understand that application and how to wield its power? Or are you doing some kind of interesting installation of the brand's identity in a true experience and environment? Where is this being applied? What kind of audience are they speaking to? What is their budget? And how are we applying it? Client's budget and then applying that. So, and last but not least, and really where they boil down to in terms of strategies, what's the branding? Branding is unique. It differentiates a company from all of its competitors, and then it builds loyalty to spend money with that company versus the competitors. When you see this red, what does the red make you feel? Is there any company that your brain starts to feel like this red may be a part of? If you said Coca-Cola, that didn't happen by accident. That's 1886 is when this started. And look how consistent they stayed in typography, in the brush strokes, in the development of the brand and the color so that we can see that color, whether it's in a tiny logo or on the side, applied on the side of a truck in a car wrap. How do you build up that branding so that people start to recognize it forever, even if we're not screaming every little detail that we want them to know? So, strategy, again, part of that 50%. Do you understand your target audience and what speaks to them? Do you understand your client's budget and what that can even get them? You need to know the different applications of what they may say they want something, and that may be a $2,000 print. Do they even have that budget? So, where is it being applied, and how are you maximizing your client's return so that their budget is being put into their audience, target audience face in the best way possible? And then, how are you continuing to sprinkle that branding throughout everything, no matter where the application or the budget or the target audience? So, all that strategy. So, once that's done, that probably 50% piece of the strategy and research phase, you're ready then to dive into application. How are you applying this strategy and this resource? So, we start with contrast. Many of us have heard CRAP, the word CRAP in terms of graphic design: contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity. So we'll start with contrast. What is contrast? It's kind of anything. It's a variation, it's a difference. It could be color, size, shape, texture. Most frequently in graphic design, we think of contrast in terms of legibility. Can you read it? So let's see these two examples. Knowing the tiny bit you've already learned here, does one of these examples feel a little bit better on your eyes, on your brain? Does it allow you to sit with it a tiny bit longer? Those seconds matter in terms of dollars. If you said the left side, they have applied proper contrast versus the right side. Is the contrast always with text? No. Often it is in graphic design. Sometimes it's contrast among pieces. Notice on the right side, that circle and that shape, they're so overlapping in a weird way. There's not a lot of contrast. Are they connected? Who knows? So probably not as good a contrast. Let's see this in the real world. I love these two examples, movie posters, because design is everywhere. So I'm going to show you a plethora of different moments that design exists and that a computer didn't just think about it, that someone professionally developed the strategy and the application to make it so enjoyable to look at. We've got Kingsman and Jaws. Right off the bat, just the legibility of the contrast with their titles is nice. But then you really dive into the mood. If you're looking at the top of that Jaws, do you feel one way versus the contrast of the way if you're only looking at the bottom half of that piece of Jaws? So contrast can be the mood. It can be a lot of things. Properly wielding that throughout your design can really make some beautiful impacts in the world. So contrast. After we've done that, are we repeating? Repetition. It is not boring. It is consistent. You need to educate your clients on that. That's huge. They so often want to try new things and have we got boring? No, because it enhances the consistency and it fosters brand recognition. Remember that branding goes back to everything. You want people to see you without being screamed at that that it is you. So are you repeating your elements enough that people start to notice you if they only see red? It establishes rhythm, structure, guides the viewer's eyes. It's very important in a memorable experience. So let's look at these two. And now, knowing a little bit about what you know, does one of these feel a little bit better on your eye than the other? You know, if you said the left side versus the right side, can you have lots of variation? Yes. But does repeating certain things, again, it's not boring, it's consistent. Are you looking at the bigger picture of the brand, of the target audience that you've researched and spent all this time with, of where this is going to be applied over a variety of platforms so that they all sort of look the same? You know, repetition. Let's see it in the real world. Here's one example. We've got color repetition. Look at the orange and how it sweeps from the top down through the middle to the bottom and over to the back page with the orange, with the teal also. Notice even in the logo of the Manatee County government, that swoosh of their branded logo, sort of their foundation of their branding identity, has been repeated in these different elements so that it circles the page but does not distract. How contrast with the opioid epidemic is black best? Not always, but it worked really well here. Are you repeating elements? Are you keeping those colors consistent? And then if you look at the infographic part with the shape of Florida and the dots or the little people, you know, what does that kind of repetition mean? It means quite a few different things. So repeating elements and then repeating in a bigger picture and then repeating elements in a smaller picture is really important. And it's something you have to step back and take a look at and redevelop. You know, Monet did his lily pads 240 times. Are you willing to put forth even a portion of that amount of work to understand your art form to a point that you could be considered a level of professional? Okay, repetition. Next up, alignment. What does alignment means? You know, most simply, it's just how are elements connected or organized. I think of a junk drawer, and can you have a busy junk drawer and still get to the things you need? Yes. But if your junk drawer is more organized, is it quicker for you to get that object out? Same kind of thing with alignment and a composition. You know, here's two examples. And do they both work? Yes, probably. Does one work a little bit better than the other? And if you said the left side, it's because alignment has come into play. Again, it's not boring. It's organized, it's thoughtful, and it allows the majority of your viewers to travel properly through your piece without straining their eyes or their brains too much. Because you want it to be easy, right? For them to spend money in some way, even if the money is just their time in scrolling. Okay, so let's look at it in the real world. So alignment. Here it is in sort of the micro. Alignment in this one singular piece. Notice the title has a certain width on the left and the right, and that width is carried out throughout. In terms of graphic design, is it always a big showy piece? No, sometimes it's information. Remember, the point of a graphic designer is to communicate to an audience for a client, very specifically. This client of DeSoto needed to communicate to their donors, busy, wealthy donors, a lot of opportunity for those donors to donate money, to sponsor. So that information, that communication of come sponsor things for us is very important. And having it beautifully laid out, even if it's not some big flashy event poster, is still really important to your client in terms of money. So the micro is this alignment within the piece. This one's, you know, one level of alignment. There's lots of different levels. And then you go sort of macro, and can you take this one piece and can you span that out over a series of pieces that work individually? And then when they are trimmed full bleed because it worked within their audience, and we're always keeping in the back of our head who is our audience. It's fast. We need them to be able to quickly gather the info. So having this leave behind folder, when all of these pieces are stacked up together, you can see on that right side how they also align as a whole. So your audience can see this as a whole. Here's my whole package of what I can donate. And then as individual pieces, they really live alone by themselves and what that means for that client in terms of spending time in your folder that you have spent money on, your client spent money on, that is trying to target their audience and build brand loyalty. Contrast, repetition, alignment, and what that can mean in the overall picture when you practice it as an art form. Even these titles individually are there on their own. You sort of start to look at them like they're centered, but they're actually not. That's a thoughtful piece of the process so that when it lives by itself, it's very easy to flow. Okay, contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity. What is proximity? In its most simple terms, it's how close are things. Are they really tight for a good reason, or are they really spread out for a good reason? It can be both. Knowing what you know, does one of these feel a little nicer on your eyes? If you said left, it's probably because of alignment. Now, let's break that apart a little. You've got alignment of text pretty close, so sometimes things can live close. But notice how quickly we can hop right into that and know that it's there. Also, space. Proximity is not always tight of things, but it's giving things space to breathe. Did you give a path, a literal road through your piece that allows your target audience to travel through it, to embrace your piece? So proximity, close or far, has a purpose in building up really good professional design. Let's look at it in a real world sense. I think this is a good example of proximity close and what it can do for you, and proximity far away. Notice how the center of this main image, and I say image is singular, it's really comprised of so many images, so many different birds, trees, the water, the playground, the people, young people, old people, turning some direction, turning another, pointing one way, even some text. But somehow, because those items in proximity are so tight to each other, they read as one glorious image, which is really nice. And then talk about space. Look at that beautiful space around this image that allows us to start at our first eye moment with the logo in that upper left corner and just float around this complex image, sort of like floating around at a zoo, what that would mean. So, what a way to communicate so much with also so little. There's just a logo, a slogan, and that's kind of about it. We don't have to shove a newspaper worth of information at someone to get them to embrace with our client. So proximity close can be great, and so often proximity far away, giving that white space, that room to travel. All right, two more pieces that really make the application drive it home as a professional in speaking to your audience. Balance and weight. What does that mean? Quite literally, does your piece tip left or right? Balance enhances the legibility. We go back to legibility with this so often, with the contrast legibility, with the repetition, with the alignment legibility. Can I get to what I'm reading quickly? So balance helps with the legibility, the cohesiveness, and just making it pleasing on the eye. So let's look at two examples. And again, now knowing what you know, does one feel just a little bit better than the other? Probably that left side. Notice how that right side starts to tip us over, to quite literally tip us over and out of the composition to the left. So let's glance at this in the real world. Is this the most sound example of balance? No, but it is an example of balance. Here we have Sarah Collins. She's an SCF graduate, and she wrote and illustrated and published her own book. She sells it on Amazon. She's sold over 700 copies, and look at her 5-star review. Why do people like her books? Why do kids, her target audience, like her books? Does she have proper contrast? Is she repeating the elements? Is she aligning the elements to make them easy, giving space to to roam and move, but also pulling things tight that makes sense to those objects? And is it balanced? It's centered with the typography. Does that help keep it balanced? Notice the top left corner and the bottom, or the top right corner and the bottom left corner both have this same leaf, but they're slightly different scale. That's not by accident. That's to help balance the piece. The dark of the parrot's beak versus the dark of the butterfly, balance. So can you continuously come back to balance and make sure your piece is balanced? And last but certainly not least, and probably my most favorite, and the most important, and what really drives a professional graphic designer's principles, is the visual hierarchy. What does that mean? Quite literally, do you direct the viewer's attention, your audience's attention, to what you are emphasizing, to what your client needs emphasized? And are you doing it as easy as possible? So let's take a look at that. A couple examples. Knowing what you know, does one of these feel just a little bit better on your eyes than the other? If you said left, it's not by accident. It's, the right side, it's fun, there's lots going on. Maybe the left is too boring. No, it's consistent. Visual hierarchy, I am driven right to that red triangle. Does that red triangle speak to my client's needs, to their target audience? And if that does live right there, then I have been successful in visual hierarchy and drawing them through my piece to what I exactly want them to look at. Versus a lot of things going on and not 100% what my most important piece is. So visual hierarchy. And I ask you, just stare at this for a minute. There are 12 words other than the UN's logo on this entire piece. So do I have to communicate with tons of words? No. Visual hierarchy. And how this designer has wielded their tools, their knowledge, their principles to create such an impactful piece of communication for their client, the UN, to their target audience, probably parents. The idea of my little boy's hand bloodied and trying to stop something bad happening haunts me. Does it haunt you also? What is their target audience? Where is their application? Where are these posters going? What's their budget? The UN has a huge budget, so they can do these beautiful full bleed poster size pieces. What's their branding? The UN is very small on their branding, but still impactful with this PSA, this public service announcement, but it's still injected in there. Do they have proper contrast? And a good example of this is look down at the very bottom where it says stop child labor. Our key message in 3 short words, stop child labor. Look at the visual contrast in very simple terms of just the white text on a black background. Notice that our brain registered that black background as a lot of handprints, lots of kids, because it's up above it is a lot of kids. And why didn't they just leave a lot of hands showing through? Would that have been good contrast? No, they've implemented that means of contrast. They've added that extra black moment down there, but repeated those hands enough times that your brain sort of still registers that darkness down there as more and more hands. They have aligned this in such a way of ever so slightly off balance with the one hand to the side, but I'm still very balanced. I'm not tipping out of the piece. The proximity of that little hand to that stop button and how that makes us feel, the proximity of, this message sort of anchored down at the bottom, and the balance is there. This piece speaks to us for a lot of reasons, and none of those reasons are accidental. So let's circle back to this. Is this graphic design? Or is this graphic design? You tell me. Let's go back to this guy. Is this graphic design? Is there good contrast and legibility? Are they repeating the same few amounts of edited, curated things throughout? Are things aligned for easy flow? Do you have proximity and a road to travel through, some space to breathe? Is the balance all right? And is there visual hierarchy? What is the message this client is trying to speak to the audience? Did you think it was a circus? You know, did they get their message across? I don't know. Probably not. Does it work as a level of a flyer? Sure. Is it professionally designed to maximize the target audience, the application, the budget, the branding? Does it apply proper principles of contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity, balance, and visual hierarchy? Or does it not? And what those things can do when steering your audience to very quickly resonate what you want them to do or know about. We started this as graphic design is three different things, and a profession is first and foremost. So why are these principles so important? Why is studying the subject of graphic design and applying it in your art so important in defining yourself as a profession? There's so many opportunities: web design, interactive design, advertising and marketing, motion graphics, packaging, game design, illustration, publication, branding, instructional material, infographics. They're all there. It's really open-ended. The opportunities for a professional in the field of graphic design are truly boundless as their imagination. We give you the tools. How are you going to apply it? It's very interesting. In conclusion, lots of people can add images and text to a document, but does that make them a professional designer? Have they utilized the principles of the craft? Have they studied the art form and applied it? Have they learned about their target audience? Have they maximized their client's budget? Are they optimizing the plethora, almost unlimited, amounts of outlets that this piece of communication can be designed for? Are they staying true to their client's brand? And then are they properly developing communicative design with applying contrast, repetition, alignment, proximity, balance, and visual hierarchy? Thank you so much. I hope you all learned a lot and really see some of the applications of the study of graphic design